And a little bit down in Lamed Bezim, a little bit, maybe 15, 20 lines down the page. First one line is Taner Rabbanon, 32b. Somebody enters the what do you call it? The carpenter shop, the shop of a carpenter. Nagar is more like a blacksmith than a carpenter. Shaloi b'rishos, without permission. The nitza bikas v'tofcha al panav umetz potter. What happened was the hatchet fell off the axe and it killed the guy. So if he entered without permission, he never really belonged there in the first place. So potter, the blacksmith, is exempt from exile. And obviously, the general concept here is that if you kill by accident, you do have to go to exile. But over here, because he was in his own property, he did not expect anyone to be there, and then you sort of popped in without permission, and you were there, and the person was there, and he got killed. He's exempt from exile. But if he entered with permission, chayev, then he is liable. But what does liable mean? My chayev, he's chayev for nizikin, but he's exempt from golus. The first opinion is, according to Rabbi Yossi Chanina, entering with permission is different than a forest. The Torah's typical example of golus, of exile, is where a guy enters a forest, where it's owned by no one. And here, because it's owned by somebody, it's not in the same category, and there's no exile. In a forest, each one enters, the forest is ownerless, each one enters with permission. However, with regard to the blacksmith, this guy needs the other guy's permission to enter. And because it's different, therefore there's no exile. So Rava says to the contrary, Kal v'chaymer. Just like a forest, when each one goes in on their own, of their own volition, it's as if he has his friend's permission. One second. So Rava's question is, if you look at a forest, each one entered of his own volition. In other words, the guy who was holding the axe, who ended up killing the other guy, the mistaken aggressor, he didn't invite the other guy inside the forest. The other guy came of his own volition, and yet he still goes to exile. Certainly, where he invites him into his shop by giving him permission to enter, for sure there should be exile, because it was even. There was a greater onus on the mistaken aggressor to be more careful. If he knew somebody's entering a shop, there's much more of a responsibility to be careful than if he's in a forest where nobody's around, even if anybody could be around. So Rava says, "My potter migolos." Why is he exempt from exile? Exile is only when somebody kills by accident. And I think we mentioned this before. If somebody kills, and it's more likely than not that it wasn't an accident, they're actually, it was more likely than not that it wasn't an accident. They actually are guilty. Then we put them in a category called Karev Lamezit. So Karev Lamezit is somebody who's, I think in English is probably close, was pretty close to what we would call manslaughter. His negligence resulted in somebody else's death. Whereas shogeg is sort of borderline negligence. Shogeg is more that he wasn't, shogeg is much less negligent than Karev Lamezit. What's the penalty for Karev Lamezit? There is an opinion that says, so in general, how does exile work? A guy kills somebody else by mistake, right? Reuven kills Shimon. By the way, it has to be he has to kill him by mistake, doing a downward motion, right? It's an interesting thing. It has to be derech yerida.
Oh.
So, for example, let's say he I don't know, he's practicing throwing a javelin, and by accident throws into a tree where somebody was and kills the guy. There's no exile. I presume that a javelin's thrown upward. I think that's how it's done.
There's no exile, but he's not.
There's no exile, but he's not guilty of a crime. Presuming that obviously he should not have, there was no reason for him to expect that somebody was relaxing in a tree. Yeah.
Right.
The good example of it's going downward is, let's say he's walking up a step, so his foot went down on the step, right? Or he's using a hatchet and he's slamming. He's trying to crack some woods, and the hatchet falls off the axe.
In the downstroke.
On the downstroke, yeah.
But it probably fell off part way up to the stroke. If you want to get there.
No. So we're talking about probably it cracked off from the impact.
From the impact.
It's not the modern. I think the axe. If you look at the pictures of the axes of the olden days, they're not like the modern axes. Okay. That being said, so what happens? So now the mistaken aggressor must go to exile. What's going to encourage him to go to exile?
The family of the.
Oh, very good. The family of the victim can take out their vengeance on the mistaken aggressor. They are permitted to kill him unless he's in a city of refuge. Okay, if you're interested in learning more about that, I have to plug my share tonight. So if I'm giving a share on Hanukkah, I believe it's at 9:00. It's on the Kollel's website. We'll talk more about this subject here about a bit of exile, and then you'll have to see how that has to do with Hanukkah.
I thought it was at 8.
Oh, it's probably at 8. Yeah, it's probably at 8. Probably at 8:00. Okay. So that's the story of exile. Now, Karev Lamezit, there's an opinion that says if it's more likely that he's negligent than mistaken, that he can be killed anywhere. You don't have this. Golos doesn't protect him. In other words, he has the same law as someone kills by accident, i.e., the redeemer, the Goyal Hadam, the family members of the victim can redeem their vengeance with him, but he's not protected by a city of refuge. So basically, wherever he goes, this guy always has to be careful for his life. Behind the time of Rabbi Dovid Yehudah, okay, because it's a shogeg Karev Lamezit. Because the guy knew that somebody was in his shop, he's considered culpable and negligent, and the city of refuge doesn't protect him. Mosif Rava asked, okay, so this guy was getting lashes. Common penalty is a common violation. Common set of Torah laws are called lavin. These are prohibitions, and if you violate them, you might get malchus. Now, how many lashes do you get? As many as the doctor approves, up to 39. Let's say the guy was whipped one extra time. Umeis, and he dies. Hareza goyla. Then the guy, the administrator of the one administering the lashes, he has to go to exile. Goyla yodai. In other words, he kills the guy by accident. So the Gemara says, this is an example of somebody who's done an accident, but again, not quite, right? He did intend on hurting the guy. He was allowed to because he was a messenger of the court, but his negligence is his actions pretty close to negligent than to mistaken. He should have kept the count going, and he didn't. And he should have recognized that if the court evaluated this guy for 10 lashes, it's probably because he can't take an 11th. So it's much more on the side of negligence here than the side of a mistake. So Amar Simbar Nardoi Toib Minyana. So Simbar Nardoi says he made a mistake in the count. He was counting incorrectly. Tafaklai Rova Besandale. So Rova took a shoe and kicked him. Amarle, he says to him, Otu ha money, Otu hu money. Does the guy administering the lashes, is he the one who's counting? The answer is no. But Tanya we learned, the leader of the judges, he reads a certain set of verses while the guy gets malchus, lashes. Vashani, and the second guy, Maina, this is a second guy who counts the number of lashes. Vashlishi Amar Akeo, and the third guy pronounces to hit him. So you sort of have a redundancy, even if the second guy messes up, you still have a third guy. You can't hit until the third guy permits you to. And to make sure that nobody hits an extra time without just cause. Okay, so how did it happen that he got confused in the count? He's not even counting. The judge who's counting, he was the one who made the mistake. So that's why it's considered an accident. The guy who's giving the lashes isn't thinking about the count. It's the judge that's supposed to be thinking about the count, and the judge made a mistake. Okay, a guy throws a rock into the public area and it kills somebody, he goes to exile. So Gemara says in second, right? A guy is throwing a rock into public space. It doesn't sound like an accident, right? This is a quote unquote accident, but it's much more closer to negligence. He should have realized that people who walk in public areas. And the Bryce says you do go to exile. Shmuel Yitzchak says he was knocking down his wall. Sigmar says, what type of excuse is that? Right? He should have put out the caution tape. Sigmar says, he knocked it down at nighttime. So he couldn't check who was there. Sigmar says, that's not an excuse. Why would you be exempt to check to make sure nobody's there at nighttime too? Sigmar says, of course he's doing it by daytime. But he was doing a la'ashba into a garbage pile. Someone says, "Hi ashba hechidami." What type of garbage is this? If this is an active landfill, so people are always around, then mezidu, it's intentional. And if nobody's around, it's an ancient landfill. So onosu. So then there's no reason to presume anyone's there, and he's an onos. Okay, an onos or oines is completely exempt from exile. Honest is something that's beyond, there was absolutely no reason for him to be careful. So, like, for example, you go to the forest, right? The guy is chopping wood in the forest, so he could have expected that somebody might be there. It's unlikely, but it's a possibility. Whereas if the guy is knocking down a wall on an ancient landfill, there's no reason for him to presume anyone's there. So then he's not even a shogig. It's not even considered an accident. So Amar Papa says, okay, this is a garbage pile where people will relieve themselves at nighttime, but not by daytime. However, occasionally you'll have people that will relieve themselves there by daytime. It's not considered a mazid because generally speaking, people aren't there. You're not considered a complete einus either because occasionally there are people that go there to relieve themselves. Okay, so let's pause here for a second. Let's just review what we saw. There were two scenarios in the Brisa. Okay, scenario number one was a guy walks into a shop without permission. Right, he walks into the shop of a Nagar. When I was in Israel, I studied in yeshiva. There was on a street called Hanagar, and what do you think? Who do you think was on the street? A bunch of blacksmiths. There must have been 10 blacks. The whole street was basically a small street, but everyone was a blacksmith shop. So you imagine a guy walks into one of these shops, blacksmith shop, without permission. And sure enough, the guy's banging his mallet on the anvil, and the head of the mallet falls off and kills the guy. So if it's the first scenario, if it's without permission, what's the halacha?
No problem.
No exile. You have no business being there. With permission, no exile either, because city of refuge doesn't protect you. Right, but you do have to pay for damages.
Okay.
So there's no exile because you're closer to guilty than innocent. Okay, that was the first version of the Gemara. Now we get the second version. The Papa is referring to the first scenario. What's the first scenario? Where the guy did not have permission to enter. And without permission, the mallet hits him in the head and kills him. So Rabbi Yehudah says you're chayev for nezikin and exempt from exile. You're exempt from exile because you had no permission to be there, but a person is always chayev in nezikin. Okay, this is important. The second scenario is with permission, no exile, but yes damages. First scenario is without permission. Same story, no exile, because he's totally exempt, he went without permission, but there is damages. So now, if you hold those damages in the second scenario, in other words, a scenario where he came in with permission, and despite the fact that he came in with permission, he still was accidentally killed, yet you still pay for damages. So for sure, in a scenario where he enters without permission, you'd also be exempt from exile and pay damages. Okay, kol shken areisha. Man demasan areisha aval seif kivnim b'shus chayev golos. Kivnim b'shus chayev golos. Okay. However, if you go in the first, if Rabbi Yossi was referring to the first scenario, meaning in a scenario where the guy does not have permission to enter, that's when you're exempt from exile but must pay. But the second scenario where he enters with permission, it could very well be that Rabbi Yossi Reb Chanina would say that you would be chayav exile, golus. Makes sense, because over there you enter with permission, and therefore it's an accident, and you have to go to golus. Okay, so Gemara says, "Mi chayav golus? Would you be liable for exile?" Vatanya nefnas lechanutza shel nafach. A guy enters the shop of nefach. I think is also blacksmith. They translate nefach.
Oh.
Nafcha is a blacksmith. Sorry.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay, v'nitza and nitzitzes, and sort of sparks were flying, or small little pieces of metal. V'tafkel upon of a mace, and it hit him at a high speed, and he killed him. Potter, the blacksmith, is exempt from exile. Va'afilu nechnas b'rshus, even if he had a right to be there. In other words, okay, so clearly here we see that if you have a right to be there, you're still exempt from exile. In other words, we just offered a suggestion that, according to Rabbi Yossi Chanina, if you enter with permission, the owner of the shop would be chayav in exile, chayav in golos, and over here we're saying that no, he would not be chayav in golos. So Gemara says, we're talking about the blacksmith student. So Gemara says, is the blacksmith student marked for death? Just because he's learning how to become a blacksmith. Why does that exempt the blacksmith from when if he kills him? So Gemara says, when the master, the teacher, told him to leave. He didn't leave. So Gemara says, is that a justification to kill him? Does that mean that he's sort of, his blood is no longer red because he didn't listen? So Gemara says, Kasavar Yotze, he thinks he already left. Ihachi Acharnami. In other words, if he kills somebody else, he should also be exempt from exile. So Gemara says, Achar lesli ems the rabbi, ha isli ems the rabbi. Okay. In other words, a regular person, the blacksmith can presume, you always watch the the kids usually, whenever there's somebody engaging in a skilled craft, it's not uncommon for the kids to look around and watch them. Like you see these crowds around the bands, or a carpenter. So
Sure.
he told the kids to sort of stand back, and of course they didn't listen to him, right? As you might expect. They don't know the guy, they have no fear of him. So that, it's his responsibility to make sure that if he tells them to leave, that they actually leave. However, his student, he presumes if he tells the student to leave, the student is going to actually leave. And therefore, he didn't bother to check if the student left. And because of that, he's exempt from damages because he could have presumed his student would leave.
There's another cutesy chart here. One of their little charts. Different possibilities.
Let's see. Yeah, it's very good. Yeah. This is the Gemara we just saw, the previous Gemara, with the Reish and the Seifa, first and second part.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Rav Zvid Mishmei de Rava Masnil Aha. Rav Zvid says in the name of Rava on the following brisa: Umotza prat lamamtzi es atzmai. In other words, the hatchet finds the person. This exempts somebody who finds the hatchet. Okay, I got that. The guy's cutting wood, right?
Right.
And he's chopping wood, and the hatchet falls off, and it flies and kills somebody. It found the person, as opposed to the person finding it. Well, what does that mean? Let's continue. Somebody who finds the hatchet instead of the hatchet finding him. How did that happen? Amar Belazar ben Yaakov. A stone comes out of the guy's hand. So basically, that the hatchet was flying, and then the guy comes running up. So the guy found the hatchet as opposed to the hatchet finding the guy. So it was interesting. It was just you read the journal article yesterday about the sniper who killed from 2.5 miles.
I saw the article. I didn't read it.
A very interesting article, although obviously I'm not glorifying the death of the article,
Right.
But whatever. Okay. Anyway, it was a very interesting article, regardless. But one of the points they made, so this allegedly a sniper killed somebody from 2.5 miles away.
Yeah, right.
The rifle's got to have been 7 feet tall. It's that
long,
big.
too.
Yeah.
You have a very long rifle.
Incredible. The cartridges are like 7 inches. Anyway, 7 inches is with the projectile itself being 1.5 inches. Anyway, one of the interesting things they had in the article was that it took the bullet 9 seconds to kill the guy. 9 seconds. So when the shot was fired until the bullet got to him. Now lahavdil, in the equivalent goals, let's say a guy was practicing sniper shooting from 2.5 miles away, and somebody comes, the guy shoots the bullet, and 9.5 seconds, a lot of time.
Right.
The guy runs out, and then the bullet hits him. He would be exempt from exile. Why? Because the guy found the bullet. It wasn't the bullet that found the guy. If the guy was standing still and he shot the bullet like this is assassination, so then of course there wouldn't be goal. It's just murder, basically. Right? It's very hard to think of. I don't know. I guess it's very hard to think of a scenario where he'd be exempt from goals because obviously he knew what he was doing. You can't 2.5 miles. You can't make a mistake. However, with regard to, but if the guy was sort of target practicing and somebody comes in, and finds the bullet, then you'd be exempt from damages. Okay. 1 second. Okay. Amar Rabbi Potter migolos v'chayav arbod farms. Rabbi Yehudah says, even though a guy who finds the bullet or he finds the hatchet, he runs into the hatchet, the mistaken aggressor is exempt from damages. However, chayav arbod farm, he's chayav for nizikin. The person who authors or v'yesi on this statement, for sure on the previous statement. In other words, if Rabbi Yehudah says you're chayav in nizikin, even when you shot a bullet and a guy came and intercepted the bullet, the guy walked into the bullet instead of the bullet hitting him. If Rabbi Yehudah says you're still chayav for nizikin in this scenario, for sure in the previous scenarios you're also chayav in nizikin. But in the previous scenarios wouldn't necessarily indicate that you'd be chayav in nizikin in this scenario. It's very likely you can argue that in this scenario you should be exempt from damages because it's such a far-fetched event that occurred. There should be no damages. Okay, Tana Rabbanan. Sad story here. There were workers that came to demand their pay from the master that they were working for. And the ox of the balabayas of the owner went ahead and gored them, or the dog bit them, umace, and they died. Potter, the owner is exempt from damages. The second opinion says, workers have a right to demand their pay from the owner, and therefore presumably they did have a right to enter his domain, his property, to be able to collect their salary. If you could find the guy in the city, so then why do they enter his private property? And why does the opinion that says that if he entered their private property, that he'd be chayav, he'd be liable for damages? If he's only found in his house, so then of course they have to go to his house to collect. So why is he exempt from his animal's damages according to the first opinion? By time in Tanakamos, Gemara says, "Let's read the shkiach for shkiach." The Karabov of Amalu in. Okay, so what happens is this guy is often in his house, but often not in his house, and they decided to go to his house to collect their salary. They earn, they have entitled to a day's worth of pay. So they knocked on his door, and the guy says in English, roughly speaking, yes. And it wasn't clear, was that a yes, come in, or was that yes, wait there? So the rabbis say the yes means yes and wait there. And when you walked in, you walked into a private property that had wild oxes and rabid dogs, and you got bitten and killed. It's very sad, but unfortunately, had no business being there, and he's exempt from damages. And the second opinion says no. In means yes, come in. You're invited. And if that's the case, of course, if they enter with permission, of course, he is chayav for the damages of his ox and his dog. Marasavar in Marasavar in oil tomashma. One opinion says in yes means come in. Marasavar in kumadochtach, wait there, mashma. That's what it means. Tanya commando amar in kumadochtach mashma. We have a Bryce that supports the opinion that says that yes means wait and I'm coming. The Tanya, the Bryce says, a worker comes to demand his payment, and he got damaged by either the ox or the dog. The owner is exempt. So the Gemara, even if he entered with permission. So the Gemara says, what does that mean? If he entered with permission, am I potter? Why is he exempt? Elalav, it must be the permission was the Karabov of Omer Le'in. He called out from his front door and he said yes to the guy. And the word yes doesn't mean that you're invited in. It means wait there and I'm coming. And he came in, he entered the property anyway, and he got damaged, and therefore the owner is exempt from the damages.
So it means what do you want?
What?
It means what do you want?
Yeah. Okay. Next mission. Lamed Gimel Amid Aleph, 33a, first mission. Shnei Shavar and Taman Shechavu Zazah. You have two animals that are not habituated. Okay? Mishalim b'mois v'chatzin ezek. You pay the maximum, you pay the remainder half damages. Okay, so what does this mean? You have two oxen, let's say for argument's sake, one is worth $200 and the other one's worth $400. And they each damage each other. Let's say they each damage each other $100 worth of damage, which means obviously the 400 mauled the 200 much more severely than the 200 mauled the 400, right? Okay, so now the 200, the 400 guy owes the 200 guy half damages, 50, right? And the 200 guy owes the 400 guy half damages, which is also 50. Okay, so what's the net difference? Zero. Okay, let's say that they each damage each other 50%. So the 200 is damaged 100, and the 400 is damaged 200. 50% each. The value is 50% decrease in value. Now, the 200 owes the 400 guy 200, which is what actually ends up being paid, because that's the maximum value of the aggressor animal. The 400 guy owes the 200 guy 100, so they deduct 100, and he pays 100. Now, let's say instead of the 400 guy being 50% damaged, it was a $500 ox that was halfway damaged. So now the damage is 250. The net payment is still going to be only 100, right? Because the maximum payment is 200, not 250, and 100 is deducted because the 500 damaged the $200 $100. So you deduct from 200 100, and you're left with $100 payments. So Mashalma Meiser Chatzin Ezek, you pay half damages. Obviously, whichever one is greater. Shnei Mu'adim, if they're both Mu'adim, Mashalma Meiser Nezek Shalom. So then you look at the net damage. Whoever was net damage worse, that's the one who receives complete payment for that difference. Echad Tam Be'echad Mu'ad. 1 second. Doesn't. Oh. One animal is not habituated, the other one is. So muad b'tam shalom meiser nezik shalom. The muad pays the tam, the remainder of the damages. You subtract, the larger from the smaller from the larger, and that remainder is paid nezik shalom, full damages. However, tam b'muad mishalom meiser chatzi nezik. A naive animal that kicks a habituated animal, that he pays the difference, but only half of it, and limited by migufay. And two guys that get into a fight, same story. They pay nezik full damages. A man kicks an animal kicks a man. The man and the animal get into a fight. They pay the difference. The animal is a muad. They pay the difference of nezik shalom, full damages. A person gets into a fight with a naive animal. The man pays for the animal if his damage was greater, full payment. The the naive animal pays the difference, but only half of it. Rabbi Kiva has an interesting exception here, that if a naive animal gets into a fight with a person, the naive animal makes full payment as well. We're together? Yeah. The verse states this is the rule. Just like the laws of an ox with another ox, so too is the laws of an ox with a man. In other words, there's a difference between tam and muad. Just like an ox to an ox pays half damages if it's naive, and a muad pays full damages. Similarly, a naive animal that kicks a person, the naive animal pays half payment, and the muad makes a full payment. Second. So Rabbi Kiva says kamishpa means like the laws of a muad, and not like the laws of a tam. So therefore, you always pay full damages. I would think that if that's the case, you should pay min haliyah. You should pay the actual value of the damages, not limited by migufa, the value of the aggressor animal. You do it to him, meaning to the ox. In other words, a shor tam that damages a person pays nezek shalom but migufay, limited by migufay, because it says do it to this ox, meaning the maximum value of the ox itself. Why does it say kimishpat hazeh? What is the zeh limitation for? You don't pay 4 payments when a ox kicks a person. You don't pay for his doctor bills, etc. You only pay for nezek. For Rabbi Kiva, how does Rabbi Kiva know you don't have to pay for an ox does not pay the full 5 payments. He only makes one of the 5 payments. 4 payments he's exempt from. When the verse refers to the 5 payments, it says a man will inflict a wound on his friend. Ish b'misay, a man on his friend, v'lo shar b'misay, but not an ox to his friends. V'rabbanon, the rabbis say, the rabbis say, if it were only for that verse, I would say it'd be exempt from the payment of pain. But you would be liable for, let's say, embarrassment and doctor bills and the time he's in the hospital, can't work at all. So how do I know that you're exempt for those things as well? The answer is because it says, Kamishpat Hazeh. The laws of the animal are like the animal, they do not pay all 5 types of payments. Only one of the 5 payments are made. That would be Nezikin. Okay, let's just see the next Mishnah. Shor Shovim Mona, Shinogach Shor Shovim Messiah. An ox worth 100, gores an ox worth 200, if it ain't an avail Yafa Klum. And the carcass isn't worth anything. Noitel as Hashor, the owner gets to keep the ox. Meaning the victim keeps the aggressing ox. Okay, that gets to an interesting discussion tomorrow, which is Yusham or Hochlat. Okay, in other words, do you actually keep the ox? Is that literally, or does it mean you keep the value of the ox? Okay, have a great day.
It's live.
Yeah, I would continue for another minute or so, but I just didn't prepare it. I fell asleep when I was preparing last night. So.